So straight to that breaking news coverage of the attacks in Lebanon, where more than 1,000 people have been injured after hundreds of personal communication devices exploded simultaneously across the country. It's believed most of the pagers were being carried by members of Hezbollah. At this supermarket, a man is picking fruit and vegetables when his device explodes. Fellow shoppers run from the scene and appear to hold their ears in pain from the loud explosion. A security camera footage shows another man's device exploding in his pocket at a shop checkout. 2 staff members are hit by debris and run away from the counter. Hezbollah has called it one of the biggest security breaches since the group was formed. Emergency departments have been inundated with injured Hezbollah members and civilians. Local media reports say the pagers simultaneously exploded across the country after being hacked by Israel. The health ministry has appealed to all citizens who own pagers to dispose of them. Several shocked witnesses have been warning others to get rid of their pagers.
The pager devices that we have been using, all of them are exploding in the guise. We have more than 40 injured. All are going to the hospital.
We don't have room anymore in the hospitals. There's more than 400 men here. Their pagers exploded, the ones they use for communication. These are big assassinations.
And Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. Marwan, you're joining us from Paris. I know you've been listening to everything that was said. Can you pull all of these threads together? This is still a very new story and development just over the last 2 hours. 2,750 people injured. What do you make of all of this?
Well, let's start with your persistent question this past hour, Cyril, about the logic behind an attack of this nature that presumably killed only so far a few people. I think the intention, the logic, and the strategy behind such attack is not how many casualties, although we don't know yet how many casualties we will end up with after the final tally comes in. The main objective of such an attack is terror. And for our viewers around the world, it'll probably be helpful to do some role play here. Imagine if 1,200 people active in the Pentagon, State Department, and the CIA had their pagers explode in their faces, arms, and abdominal. How would you think the United States feels about that? Imagine that the executives in Silicon Valley, California, 1,200 of them had their phones or communication devices explode in their pockets and in their faces. How would you think California, the high-tech industry, and the United States security apparatus feels about that? So this is a major, major breach. And yes, as we've heard earlier, if this breach is not to the supply chain, but it's a breach to the communication system, to the communication devices, if it's a cyber attack, then we are all in trouble. Because I think everyone, and Lebanon is a country that believes in conspiracy theories. I mean, just look at what so many of them have said about COVID and what have you. This is a terrorizing mechanism to the people in Lebanon and to the militants of Hezbollah. And this is a major escalation, not only in terms of Israel's war against its neighbors, against Lebanon and against Palestine and so on and so forth. It's also an escalation of the use of such technology in war. And hence, that's my second point, which I think is very, very important to underline, that unlike, say, a similar attack against Muhammad Ayyash, the Hamas activist, in 1996, when Israel rigged his phone with explosives, somehow got it to him, and then detonated the explosions when he answered the phone. That was 28 years ago. Israel had that kind of access and that kind of intelligence against a major Hamas militant. So if this is today about a fresh shipment to Lebanon that was hacked in terms of the supply chain and then detonated, that's one thing. But if we're talking about a major cyber attack that allows the phone to explode through their batteries or what have you, and I'm no expert at that, let me be clear, I'm talking about the psychological, terroristic aspect of it. This is a mass terror. This is an attack of mass terror. These are not cyber hacking of a system used by someone, period. This is a violent attack that's been carried massively and indiscriminately. If it's true that we're already seeing casualties among children in Lebanon, the first child apparently has died, or among diplomats, or among activists, or among family members, or the scene that we've seen and we've been showing in the marketplace, that the phones explode, then this is definitely mass terror. And again, you are introducing a new thing here, especially in terms of Israel and Lebanon. Third and last, if you tie this into your Israeli guest and your Lebanese guest and your Iranian guest, there is no doubt that Israel has not done that in void. They have been talking for many days now about taking the war to Lebanon, about expanding the war against Lebanon in order to allow for the 60,000, and they are, by the way, 60,000 Israelis who had to move south from the north. To take them back, they have to widen the war. Gallant yesterday made the declaration that Israel is going to have to expand the military operations against Lebanon in order to allow for the 6,000 return. So we're already talking, and we're already in the logic of expanding the war against Lebanon and beyond Yemen and so on and so forth. So this is a very dangerous escalation. It's a terroristic escalation, and it's a major blow to Hezbollah and potentially the smug officials in Tel Aviv will probably have a lot to celebrate today, but I think they might have a lot to regret tomorrow.
Marwan, I'm listening to everything you say. You said the main objective of this was terror. And just now, you also mentioned the idea of broadening the war. I want to be clear. Do you think, as our previous guest did, that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not only has interest in, but actively is trying to start a full-scale confrontation against Hezbollah and possibly against Iran?
Well, just to underline, of course, once again, and I appreciate your observation, they are not mutually exclusive, meaning you carry such an attack of mass terror in the context of widening the war. Because I was just saying earlier, again, let's imagine that whoever, say the Russians, I don't know, the Chinese, whatever the, you want to use as a nemesis, was behind the explosion of 1,200 communication devices among top officials in Washington. You know what this will mean? This could mean Third World War. I don't know. I mean, this is a major escalation. It is no joke, right? So this is done in the context of an already escalatory rhetoric on the part of the Israelis that they want to expand the war, and they were making threats against Yemen and so on and so forth. Now, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, that Netanyahu wanted to expand the war, first of all, beyond Gaza into the West Bank, and yes, into Lebanon. And they wanted a protracted war in Gaza. He doesn't want to leave Gaza. He doesn't want a ceasefire. And he certainly has long wanted, and especially today, to bring in the United States into a regional configuration of some sort against Iran. Because it was Netanyahu who was preaching to Congress back in 2003 why it should hit Iraq. It was the same Netanyahu who preached since and before about why the United States should be hitting Iran and why the United States should come to Israel's help if it attacks Iran or if it's attacked by Iran. So this is very much within the logic, the strategic, the political, the ideological, the fanatical logic of Benjamin Netanyahu and his minions of fascists and fanatics. And I think we're going to see that escalate. As long as the United States continues to fuel Israel's war machine, continues to shield Israel in the international arena, and continues to support Israel in whatever it does, then we're going definitely to go into the logic of a widening war.
Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara, thank you very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.